Let's give this a go. So this is welcome to this Student Experience Day podcast, and this is part of our Create the Creative series of events and podcast and streams events that we do. This session is called Breaking In Access, Barriers and the Realities of Creative. Breaking In. Let's fix that in the edit. Breaking In, Access, Barriers and the Realities of Creative Work. And across today's conversations, we're looking at diversity in the creative industries. That's our theme for this year, in a broad and practical way. So we're going to be talking about access, background, class, confidence, representation, opportunity, different routes into the sector, what students need to understand if they want to build a future in film or TV or media or production. That's quite a lot, isn't it? Yeah, that's loads. You're going to cover that in half an hour? Yeah, let's do that in half an hour. So this first conversation is about the reality of breaking in, who gets access, what barriers exist, what the industry is really like, and what students should start doing now. I'm joined by Simon Brett from Digital Orchard.
Good morning.
And Siobhan O'Gorman from Freeform Productions.
Hello.
And Alex, one of our alumni, who can give us a former student perspective.
Hello, yes.
Perspective. Let's edit that in. I'd like to start introducing you. So, Simon, I should mention here that the audience today is entirely made up of prospective students, so no pressure.
Gotcha.
So they haven't decided to come here yet. But these are prospective students, and we want to give them a little bit of a taster of what lies in store for them as they go through these things. Could you start by briefly introducing who you are and what Digital Orchard does?
Yes, so Digital Orchard is a company that supplies various services to the film and TV industry. So we supply technicians and equipment to carry out some key roles that support the camera team. So if you ever sit there and watch the end of the credits, which I thoroughly encourage you all to do, because that's where you learn about all the jobs that are out there. But we supply people called DITs, which are digital image technicians. So they're the ones that are the bridge between the camera team that know how to shoot beautifully and the post-production team that know how to edit. They're the ones in the middle that make that join up, and they manage that workflow. So they're almost one of the second or third most important person on set these days, because they really lock in the whole look of the show and the style of it, etc. We also have data managers who are responsible for all that priceless footage. So Chris was just telling the guys to run to record on the cameras just now. So if you imagine you've spent the morning filming with Tom Cruise, that footage then gets handed to somebody who has to make several copies of that so that it's nice and safe. And if anything goes wrong, we've got multiple copies of it. So that's a really high pressure job, data management. But we also do video playback, which again, if you imagine this setup here, there might be several monitors dotted around for everybody to be able to see what's going on. Hair and makeup might need to see a monitor so they can run in and touch up someone's makeup. So we supply that. We supply the people. We supply the equipment. We also run a service called Dailies, which is where a production's been filming all day, whether that's a feature film or a Netflix high-end TV drama. Their rushes that they filmed all day get copied onto numerous hard drives. One of those makes its way to us via a secure courier. And then we have a team of people, bless them, that have to work overnight. And they will QC that footage, they'll check it all out, and then deliver it off to the edit the next day.
That sounds like quite a lot of jobs that I didn't even know existed until 5 minutes ago.
That's very much our forte, actually. It's all those digital glue kind of jobs that sit in the middle of roles that people hear about.
Okay. So we'll kind of come back to the nature of this work in a minute, I think. Siobhan, could you... I don't know anything about what you do, actually. Can you tell me about what you do, what your role is in Freeform Productions, please?
Sure. So I've been at Freeform for almost 9 years. My job title is Series Editor of A Place in the Sun, which is a daytime show on Channel 4. And that is my full-time job running that. The title is Series Editor, but what that means is really I'm the senior producer on it with responsibility for the day-to-day running of that show. If anyone's seen it, we film abroad. We don't really film anywhere in the UK. It's called A Place in the Sun. And I have teams out all around Europe, North America, sometimes long haul or Caribbean as well. So, and I would do the recruitment. I need lots of researchers with language skills, APs, PDs on the road, and then we have a big post-production side that a colleague of mine will oversee, so that when shows, it takes 2 weeks to make a show on location, when the rushes come back, with help from some of the technical whiz people that you were talking about, Then it's 2 weeks in the edit, and then there's an online. I have a colleague that oversees the post side of it for me, and really it's running that. It's a show that it's almost like live telly, because we film 48 weeks of the year, and we're in our 26th year.
Wow.
So yes, and we do usually we do 120 shows. This year we're taking it easy with only 80, but that still is filming from January right through till end of the year, and then next year we will just start. It just rolls over. So it's not like some productions where you have 3 months build up and pre-production, and then you shoot for a bit, and then it goes into the edit. It's all happening simultaneously. And that's me. Before that, I've been very much live telly, live daytime, breakfast telly in the UK, breakfast telly in the US, daytime, ITV here, and now this lovely daytime show for Channel 4.
Okay. So it kind of sounds like you're in charge of it, basically.
Yeah, I have a big boss, and she's talking later in another podcast. But she, she is my line manager. But on the day-to-day basis, and all the issues, the hiring and all of that, and the editorial, meeting Ofcom, that's on my shoulders.
Okay, so it's kind of I don't know how you describe it. You're the fixer. You make everything happen.
Yeah. And I love it. It's great. It's not like a job. It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
It's a real big buzz. It's a machine. It's constantly moving.
Yeah. So all the time, it's not like kind of like a Netflix show where you film something and then it shows and then you go away for 2 years. And
no.
It's just...
No. We joke, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Wow.
But we love it. This industry, it's great to have a contract that lasts a year, and that you can... that renews and stuff. It's great to be part of a big show and a fairly high profile show. We won last week Best Daytime TV Show, and that's the third time we've won that in 4 years from the television and radio industry. So yeah, it's a cheap and cheerful great show.
Alex, I'm going to ask you to follow that. Can I ask you? Really, this is about, because you studied here. So I'd like you to maybe give an idea of what you studied here and what you've gone on to do since, and what studying here did to give you that background, maybe.
Yeah. So I graduated here 2 years ago now, and I think coming to Bucks College, what it did for me, because of the teachers, it kind of gave me the really basic principles and practices, and I think their knowledge of film and history really helped me then go forwards. Last year I graduated at a place called the Creative Media Skills Institute, which is based at Pinewood. And I'm hoping everyone here knows Pinewood. It's pretty awesome. And now I'm going forward just freelancing and being an independent filmmaker and director, working with brands to make films. And
so I might ask you a little bit about the nature of that freelancing work, because that's quite an interesting kind of thing. Because you're talking about freelancing as a director, but you're also talking about working with brands. So I assume some of it will be trying to make films of your own devising, and some of it will be kind of advertising work or even social media content.
Yeah, it's tough trying to find a balance, or trying to find projects where you can be creative and it's not just kind of a corporate thing. But for example, at the end of last year, I filmed my first independent short film, which we crowdfunded, which is great, and that's now doing festival stuff. And so now it's like, okay, I'm reaching out to brands, which I think I have an idea, and I'll go to them. For example, I just did a punk jewelry shoot, and I went to them with this idea of, hey, I know a cinematographer who loves film, let's shoot something on 16mm, because I think this is, this fits your brand and this would be a great story. And they loved it and they funded it. And starting out, maybe you're not going to get big bucks. Maybe they're just going to pay for the costs. But there is a level where you need to do projects you're passionate about so you can build your own portfolio of work and then go forwards from there. And that's kind of the stage I'm in right now, of just trying to make things that I like making. And
But absolutely, that point about actually working with a brand or pitching an idea, that's the bit people miss out a lot, is that you can make as much content for yourself as you like, but until you've done it for a brief, for a deadline, for a budget, with 3 different producers telling you 3 different things or chasing you up to get something changed, or suddenly you can't use that bit of music or whatever. That's when you really start to get recognised and see that extra value. So yeah, doing all the content itself is great, but that's brilliant going out and saying, I've got this idea, do you fancy it? And like you say, yeah, start small with it, but you deliver it on time, you deliver all the versions they want. If they want a portrait version for Instagram or whatever, you've owned that. And I think that really starts to show the value that you can bring to somebody.
Okay. So this bit might be cut out in the edit. Did you do, because we just started doing client briefs as part of the shows, as part of the media courses ourselves, working with Bucks County Council and things. Were you there for any of those? Or
I was not there.
You were there. We must have started them just after you left.
Yeah.
It must have been just after. Well, scratch that bit then. It's kind of, I can't ask you questions about that. Right. Okay. So this is really, we're going to start to talk about routes in. So this is about routes into the industry that we're looking at now. So Simon, you I believe, astonishingly, came through Amersham yourself.
Yes, like a million years ago.
Yeah, and then you were a runner at, it says here, runner at Channel 4's 124 facilities.
Yes, that's right.
So what we're going to have students in the same position as you 2 years down the line, hopefully some of these students. What helped you get that first opportunity? What did you do, or what was there for you that helped you get in?
Well, I think it was a combination of being completely honest. There is always an element of who you know. So through a charity that I worked at ever since I was a kid, so about 10 years old, my dad took me along to a charity TV station based at Hereford Hospital. So most people have heard of hospital radio, but we had hospital TV. So we were making programmes that were broadcast to the hospital itself, so people who are in there recovering from surgery can't get out, but they can see, I don't know, we used to do lovely things about local area, local parks and things like that. We used to do gardening shows, all sorts of things. So as a kid, I was learning some really useful stuff because the people there were ex and current BBC, ITV, Channel 4. We had people from Sky, so we had engineers, we had people who were journalist trainers. So I got to absorb all that knowledge. And it meant that when I finished here, I was able to sort of, I reached out to my Saturday job that I had, which was at Sainsbury's in South Ryde, if anyone knows it. I said, can I have a job for a year? And they said, yeah, okay. And a year later, I was able to take the runner's job at Channel 4. And it wasn't lined up for me in that sense, but I knew the station manager there. He basically, or studio manager, sorry, and he just kept saying, look, just keep applying. They get 1,000 applications a week. Just keep applying, just keep applying. And fortunately, it took. So, a runner, as most people should probably know, but, runners are very much that entry-level role where you are making teas and coffees. You are lugging boxes around, you are meeting people in reception and bringing them down to the studio, but you are surrounded by editors, audio mixers, cameramen and camera operators, but you can really tap into all that knowledge and you start chatting to people, and you may make a cup of tea for an editor who then says, I tell you what, when you've got 5 minutes, why don't you come in and sit in on what we're doing? And that as a routine is very traditional, very kind of old-fashioned, for want of a better word. And it is really interesting nowadays how some of that dynamic has shifted, that with so many resources available, people are able almost not necessarily skip that part of it, but you don't need to necessarily get in on that level because you've already learned some stuff outside of it. You've already done stuff for yourself. So, yeah, I think that entry-level point has sort of shifted these days for me.
Siobhan, I was going to bring you on this actually because you being in charge of stuff and making things happen and recruitment. I was going to talk about those routes in. Is that still a recognisable way in, or have things changed? Are things a bit more complicated now?
The runner's role, is that what you mean?
Well, the runner's role initially, but also, there's a lot more complexity now to the way things work. I think that seems to be quite a traditional route in. So how's that changed?
Just briefly for me, I was very lucky. I did a media production degree. I'm so old. I was one of the first ones to do a media production degree, and I got great work experience placement at BBC Belfast. I lived in Northern Ireland, and that placement, I'll be honest with you, was my key to open the door to getting. When I graduated, my first job was a part-time researcher in the BBC. That's, that just, I don't think happens anymore, So I was very lucky. But, exactly what you're saying about working with people, impressing, it's a tough job being a runner. You're the first in, you're the last one to go. But you get to meet great people, and then if they've time, they show you things. They say, oh, there's a thing at the weekend, you want to come? You get experience, you get contacts. And I was lucky. Wearing my hat now, 300 years later. In terms of recruitment, I think the industry, things are tough. The sort of programming I do is changing. I'm not really up to speed with all the digital side of things and probably a lot of the companies you're working with. But, for traditional terrestrial television, when I put a job ad out, it's overwhelming, the response, and it's very hard to narrow it down. I'd say post-COVID, I was looking for a PD, and I probably got about 115 applications for the one job, and they're all really experienced people.
Can I just ask, just for the benefit of the audience and anyone, what is a PD?
Sorry, yes, that's a producer-director, so that's somebody who is confident shooting for broadcast and also has got good production skills, knows the editorial storyline, can produce talent, contributors, so it's quite a responsible job. But that, I don't want to depress everyone. That post-COVID, that was a very tough time. In terms of getting in entry, and that's quite an experienced role. Yeah. Entry level, we have a placement at the minute. I think somebody from this college. It's a year-long, 1 day a week, and that is. I hope she's enjoying it. But that, I can see myself. Many years ago, getting in, making, just making yourself known to everybody and being busy and getting access. We did some filming on location in the UK. She came with us, so I think pestering people that trying to get work experience, and also building up other things on the side, like you pitched your your concept and you crowdfunded. For me, years ago, I love music. I would go to gigs. I'd write up a review for the local paper. I'd take bad photos. They publish them. And people that come to us now, we get applications. Have you any runners, junior researcher roles? And you've maybe got 50 people all with the same level of degree and training. But then you've got somebody who does hospital radio or TV or does this, and they've other skills, or they run this little college community project and they have a social media thing, and all of a sudden you realise, gosh, they've got tangible experience on top of great educational skills, and you've got to be keen. It's obviously it's a great industry, but there's a lot of people who want jobs in it.
Yeah. So don't just sit on the qualification, but throw yourself into anything.
Yeah.
Even if it's a non-paying opportunity, because that might be the thing that makes the difference.
Absolutely, and it doesn't have to, have 20,000 followers on a social page. This is you. I'm shooting a bird a day in the countryside for my portfolio. I don't know if photography is your thing. Just it's a passion, and you can demonstrate that, and you can show that. Okay, I haven't worked for a couple of months, but I've been doing this instead. I've been keeping busy, and it's just tangible things that make me as in recruitment go, oh gosh, they've been really proactive. They've not only got great skill set, they've actually kept themselves busy.
Okay, Alex, I'm going to come to you because obviously you're at the bottom. Well, I don't want to say the bottom end. I don't want to say the bottom end of the industry. That sounds a little harsh. It's like, yes, you're the bottom. But I'm obviously as an entrant into the industry. Did you have a kind of clear idea? I mean, you came to us. You went to CMS Pinewood, which is kind of a next step course. We are also involved in that. It's kind of part us and mostly run by CMS, but we validate it and everything. So did you kind of know what your next step was going to be? Or did that sort of develop over time, or do you still not know what your next step's going to be?
I think, for me personally, I just didn't want to go to university. I wanted to try and be independent, and I think you just kind of have to apply to as many opportunities as possible. For example, the BFI, they run academies for people aged 16 to 25. The NFTS do that as well in collaboration with Disney, which I just did this April. And you get to make a short film with, I don't know if anyone knows, NFTS, the film school in Beaconsfield, probably one of the best establishments for film teaching. And it's this free course for people who are 16 to 19. And it's because people, they want to train people in the industry. There's a big demand for young people. And especially in this area, this college is in a great location because you've got Pinewood, Leavesden, Bovingdon, so on. And so, but to answer your question, no, I think there's so many different ways you could go about it, and everyone has their own journey, I suppose.
I guess. Do you know what you're going to do now?
What am I going to do now? Freelancing and independent filmmaking.
Yeah.
I'd say right now I'm torn between two things. There's, from a director's point of view, when I make a film, how do I distribute it? Because you look at, for example, the current success, everyone's talking about Backrooms, Obsession. These are from filmmakers who just kind of break the old school rules and just post their work online instead of going for this very traditional film festival route. And so I think I'm just trying to navigate, okay, you know, Instagram is the creative person's LinkedIn, and it's just trying to build myself as a filmmaker, build my presence, and just try and reach out to brands. And,
Okay. So I'm going to move on. I could talk about Backrooms quite a lot. I love that film, and the meme it came from is really interesting. The way that he worked on the kind of I think it was a Reddit thing, and that whole thing has built up over the years from Reddit posters and gradually built up into a kind of mythology, and then he started making videos of it. And, it's a really interesting thing. And cut this bit out. It's not. Shh, take it away. So, barriers and access. So, one of our themes today is diversity. We'll try and cover. We've got maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes left. We'll cover all of diversity in that amount of time. So, we're thinking about it through access in this. So, what makes it difficult for young people to get into film, TV, or production? So, I'm going to. Siobhan and Simon, for that matter, Siobhan, you talked about the slowdown, and especially the post-COVID things, and I'm hoping we're starting to see things picking up a little bit again. I mean, we're told it's a skills shortage in the area, so there's things like, presumably that comes with things like lower budgets and less chances to pad your expenses and make a living that way. And how do these practical things affect who can realistically get into the industry?
From broadcast telly, the industry is definitely shrinking, and you know the headlines last week about BBC laying off more employees. I think the traditional way that I was trained, make a telly, you have a crew of probably 15 people, a TV show, you're on location, it's a big team. Those days are a thing of the past almost. I think you need to be nimble. Production companies, we are one of the few TV shows you'll see on Channel 4 that actually we have a camera op and a sound op, as well as a producer director and an AP. So we're quite labour intensive. Other shows like Escape to the Country or Four in a Bed, I'm just talking daytime here, the producer director shoots everything. So they're not only worried about the contributors, they're also shooting everything, and sometimes they're even doing the sound. So, so we still have brilliant crew support on our shows, but that is expensive. But the upside is I see so many new opportunities in digital, I think, and being multi-skilled. And I think you don't have to have trained as a camera op for 5 years or an editor for this or that for that length of time. If you've got multiple skills, I think if you can shoot a bit and if you can edit and if you can do some graphics and if you can interview the person, all of a sudden you have on your laptop the skills to really pitch yourself. And I do, digital is not an industry I'm overly familiar with, but I do hear about opportunities, and a lot of people over the years that we've worked with are now doing digital stuff or branding or online stuff. So I think that definitely is a sector that's developing, but it needs people, my impression is, that have multiple skills, and that seems to be an awful lot of people at the minute, which is great. But unfortunately, I think traditional, old-fashioned terrestrial telly, I think the budgets, the majority are shrinking. So
there are roles. I'm going to bring you in for a minute because I heard that word digital. And I didn't see your ears pick up because they're under headphones.
It's. I really agree with the multi-skilling point of view. So, like a few years ago, you would tend to say, look, find your niche. You know, I would always advise people to learn a bit about everything to help them. Yeah. I know a camera op who understands the edit. Because I've post-production for many, many years, so I used to deal with very grumpy editors that would always be moaning about the camera ops and they didn't give them enough looking room, headroom. time between the pan or time before they hit the stop button and all that kind of stuff. And vice versa, you'd get the camera teams moaning about the edit, and the edit are always so demanding. They want this and they want that. Whereas what you try and do is get a bit of an understanding of it all, so that if you know the sound process, if you know how critical it is to get the sound right, as a camera operator, you will think of that, and you'll be shooting that in a way that makes life better for your colleagues down the line. You may never see the editor, quite frankly, on some shows you might be working on, but you know that you've delivered content in a way that will help them out. Whereas I think now we've hit that stage where, with the amount of online tutorials that are there, the amount of TikTok posts you can see from first AC, second ACs, grips, lighting guys, just saying, this is what I do, this is why I do it. There's that wonderful lady over in the States that is a first assistant director, and just her stuff is fascinating because she starts right at the beginning of it. You know, this is what, right, how do we break down the script in shooting days? How do we set that all out? But even things like, she goes on to health and safety and stuff like that. So there's so much information out there these days that you really can learn a bit of everything. And with something like Resolve being free as well, I'd say skipping to barriers, but I think these days some of the barriers are more from a socio-economic point of view, where have you got access to a laptop? I know it seems ridiculous, most people have, but there will be people out there who don't have access to a sexy new MacBook so they can sit at home and cut their own stuff. And I think that's the gap these days, because with a free bit of software, and we're all walking around, most of us, with a near enough cinema quality camera in our pockets, you can really start to do your own stuff, really learn stuff, really learn those tools. And especially with things like Resolve, Premiere, or if you go to Avid and you're willing to put yourself through that. But with those tools, not necessarily mastered, but with those tools so accessible these days, you can really get ahead in terms of the skill level that you need to be at to then be appealing when you do start getting those experience or placement chances. You know,
I think it's really interesting, the comment that you made about having a near cinema. I'll say that again. I think it's really interesting, the comment that you made about having a near cinema quality camera in your pocket most of the time, because that's been a big change that we've had in the last few years. Is we have students shooting things on their phones, and it's amazing. It looks really good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from a professional point of view, is that a viable thing now? Because that.
Yeah, I mean, and every so often you'll get like the 28 years later, that was all shot on iPhone except for the bits that weren't. But, they showed these massive rigs that arrays of iPhones and all that sort of stuff. And you go, oh, that's great, but you're still putting a 50 grand lens on the front of it and using a 200 grand crane to get that shot over the countryside and stuff. So those tools are definitely there. But I think for the end that we're looking at in terms of social media and sort of entry-level content, you can just buy those little DJI accessories. Suddenly you've got decent mics. We joked earlier about all the influencers holding the bloody things, but it's like, okay, that's a start, and then you can learn from the people who then tell you how to do it right. You can see the tutorials, you can learn from those people.
I think that's a fashion thing. I think the holding little fluffy mic, I think it started off with somebody popular doing it wrong, and now people who know how to do it right are doing it.
There is an argument that it stops all this hand gesturing, which we're all doing. But I think there is just so much resource out there, and I think that is not necessarily a guaranteed way into the industry, but it is a way to help you prepare and be more useful. You're not trying to be the smartest person in the room every time you go for a job application, but you can show your work, show some content, show some effort that you've put in, more than just learning at a place like this, for example. Add that extra value. So it's the extra stuff as well. Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Alex, I'm going to bring you in because again, you've more recently been through this process, and so what kind of feels intimidating and unclear as a student? All of it?
I think I come from a background where no one in my circle, family is a creative, and this is very much there is like Simon touched upon it, there's a definite level of who you know. But then, for example, this college will provide opportunities. I spent a week at Digital Orchard, which just completely, blew me away, opened my mind, and I met loads of great people. And then you just have to go out and network. And then from a more financial point of view, you have to work to be able to afford the privilege to make films. For example, I freelance as a cook, as a barista, when I'm not. And it's a hard balance, finding, okay, how can I balance work with what I actually want to do? and life. But then, you know, you can also, that's not to say you have to go be a cook or whatever. There is lots of entry-level things you can do, which also help you independently make your own things.
Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about diversity and support. So we're talking about, I mean, one of the things that we have been looking at is people coming into the industry, and people who are maybe not particularly experienced. Maybe they have a passion for it. Maybe they've been doing some independent filmmaking, or they've got an Instagram presence, or whatever it is that has attracted you to recruit them. But they're not quite ready for maybe a DIT role or a camera role or something like that. So what would you do? What does good support look like? I'm going to come back to, I think I'll come back to Simon first. So what do you do to avoid putting people into things before? So you have a promising student, you have Alex, a promising young student, he's come to you. You think he'll be ready for this role, but he's not quite yet. So what are the kind of support structures that you put in?
Well, I mean, that's a really tricky one to nail down. I think it circles back to some of Siobhan's points earlier, just the sheer volume of applications you might be receiving. So, diverging a little bit, but one of my things is always when you apply for anything, and I know people hate typing CVs, people hate typing covering letters, but if the job application says, please submit a CV and a covering letter, that's what you need to do. But I've had applications where I open them up on my computer and somehow the Word file has come through as white text on a white background. And you're like, okay, resubmit that, because I can just about read it, but you've let yourself down here and here. And you try your best to go through everything and give everyone that fair chance. But there's only so many times I can open up a letter from somebody that says, I'm a cinematographer. And you go, no, what? Yeah, you made a film at college, but what else have you done? Lead with the other stuff. Tell me what else you've done off your own back. Tell me all those things that you have done for local businesses or friends and family that have led you to actually have a skill, make something happen on time, deliver to the brief. Lead with all of those things. But I also think paying attention to detail, there's only so much help we can give, because I open up an application and the number of times it will call us digital orchid, as in the flower, not orchard, as in the place where fruit comes from. And that will happen a lot in one application. Or worst case, you get that one that says, dear insert name, or dear production company, or whatever. Yep. Or, you know, bearing in mind the bit we work in, I might get somebody say, I'm really looking for an opportunity to become an audio sound mixer in your company, and that's the one bit we don't do. So attention to detail is key. So when I see someone that has still got opportunity or viability, shall I say, I will bounce back to them and say, look, hey, come on now, I can see something here, but reapply, because you've just let yourself down on this, and this. But that is quite taxing and quite exhausting, and there comes a point when you have to go, look, I'm going to have to start finding the people that have called us the right company, applied for the right job, and start working my way through there. But at that stage, you don't know these people, you don't know who they are, you don't know what they look like, you don't know their backgrounds. So again, you try and dive into that a bit more, and you try and find, you know, anyone like us, and I dare say you guys as well, there's always that option for anyone who's got protected characteristics. They can be guaranteed an interview. So every time you put out a job spec or a job application, somebody can apply, it will automatically trigger through, and it will say, right, you have to give this person an interview one way or another. So we give that as a sort of a way in. We will then try and support people through various schemes and incentives where we can say, look, going back to your point in particular, if someone's not quite ready, it's about, okay, well, actually, we're coming up to our Access trainee scheme where we are looking at people who've got the interest, a little bit of experience, but are a bit of a gap away. And it's about sort of seeing whether we can steer anyone into that, either through us or, you know, other companies like us. We might say, look, hey, these other guys over there, they've got an open day next week. Go along and have a look and have a chat with those guys. So it's really hard to, I guess, be fair. Fairness is such a difficult thing when you are dealing with so many applications and so many people who have got that potential. And you always worry that you've lost one because actually now we didn't interview that person. They didn't quite fit right, but a year later they might be the next
Yeah.
The next director of rooms, back rooms. Yeah.
So I guess at least be interested enough in the job in the company that you get the name right.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, yeah. Just. I know we've all done it. We've all, at that age, you are applying for absolutely everything. Everything you see, you're like, oh, yeah, I could do that. I'll put it in. So try and know your scope. Try and know the range you're going for, but also reference the company. The ones that win you over are the ones that have read up on you a bit and look into the company, look into the work you've done, know the location right. We get people applying from all over the world. So yeah, I think it's really tough as an employer to feel like you're being fair and honest for everybody. I think
I can relate to all of that, and it's depressing in a way because you've got great applications and you've only got one job. And we've had all of that, the wrong name, wrong company. I love what you do for BBC Two, and it's like, we don't make shows for BBC Two. So, there's lots of little things that, unfortunately, that means you're not considering any further their application. But also one note I have is, I make a TV show. It's on pretty much every day, on Channel 4. So most people know it. It's not like I'm making something brand new and nobody knows it. So when maybe if I've got one researcher job and I'll maybe interview 4 people, invite 4 people, the 4 strongest for that job, and sit down and say, right, it was great to meet you. So have you seen the show? No.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. So why do you want to work in it? Oh, my nan watches it and she loves it. Mm-hmm. I'm going, well, but you've not watched it? No. So what do you think it's about? Holidays? And you're like, I think if you're going for a job and you're busting your chops to get an interview, take 2 hours the day before, whiz through the iPlayer, whatever, the internet, find out a bit about the show, make sure you know who sort of the presenters are at the minute, when it's on, what it's about. That, I've had that 50 times over the last 8 years. And, and they could be amazing people, but they just haven't done that. They haven't taken an hour, 2 hours to find out about us.
Well, especially, like you were saying, if it's a researcher role, do some research.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Help validate yourself. You've got that far in. Don't assume it's a done deal.
I'm going to steer us back a little bit because it might well be of interest to the audience about the access traineeships that you mentioned. How do and I'm going to bring Alex in a minute as well and ask him about how he perceives it from his end as well. But I'd just like to touch on these access traineeships again because this sounds like a good way to get some of the sort of starter experience that you need.
Yeah, so for us, our particular version of this is called Access Trainees, and we have it with our 2 sort of wings of the business. We've got Orchard Crew, which is a diary service. So essentially, we've got camera operators, sound guys, DITs, video playback operators who own all their own equipment pretty much. And they invariably all have VW camper vans, but they're the sort of guys that will work on short form commercials. So they can turn up, open up the van, do all their work, drive away. So we have a separate business that represents them. And then we've got the agency, which is about 50 freelance technicians across those on-set roles. And in both of those kind of trees of the business, we run a trainee scheme that is for those people who've maybe literally just finished college or they've come out of film school and they're looking for that next step. The difficulty we have, of course, is that we can't guarantee them work. So what we say is, look, okay, we'll take you on as a trainee, you'll be on our books, so that when we get a production phone up and say, I need a video operator, we can say, oh, have you got the budget for a trainee or an assistant? Because here's 4 people you might want to choose from. Most productions, especially from the TV side, and also you do see it in features, will have a remit to help fund placements and training schemes and things like that. So we can help them out by going, yeah, we've got trainees. Actually, here's the 2 or 3 people. I really recommend them, and you can put someone forward. So that's kind of a way in. It's a bit different from work placements these days, or apprenticeship schemes. Apprenticeship schemes have got a bit more complicated but easy at the same time. So it's very weird. But the way we look at it is you're on the books, you're on the roster. If someone's looking up and they need to spin up a crew, they'll look for Digital Orchard, they'll see DITs, they'll go through the list and go, oh, I've worked with that person before. The director of photography has worked with this person before, so can we look at their latest CVs and get a chat with them? Oh, and we need a couple of trainees. Can you put someone forward? And then outside of that, what we try and do to add value is once a month we're running training of some sort. So those trainees will get to sit with our CEO, who is literally one of the original DITs from like 13 years ago when it became a thing. And he will teach them as much as he can, mostly sort of on-set etiquette, things like that. We'll have camera rental houses come in with their latest Sony gear and show our camera trainees how to use it, how to set it up, how do you assist a camera operator when they're working on a 35mm film camera and all that sort of stuff. And that's really, I would say to everybody, that's a real interesting thing to look into. Look out for companies that are, whether it's even just a single day, whether it's an open day, whether it's a show and tell, whether it's a demo at, I don't know, places like CVP, who is a big reseller in London, but they will often open up their doors and let people come in to look at new lenses, new equipment, and things like that. So outside of that school of learning experience, outside of the other stuff you're doing yourself, look out for all of these opportunities, whether it is work placements, schemes of any sort.
Because they're all little foot in the door things, basically.
Oh, absolutely, and you never know who you're stood next to as well, and where that person's going to go. And suddenly you're talking to someone who's like, actually, I'm doing a short film at the weekend. We're really struggling to find a boom operator. We can pay you lunch. And you go, oh, okay, great. You know, there is a bit of a weird school of thought of never work for free, but that's when you hit a certain point, I think. You know, at a certain level, you're like, yeah, I'll work for free because it is that credit, it is that other thing to go on my show reel. And when you're chatting to somebody over lunch, you then get the next thing, and you get the next thing after that.
I think that is that is an access thing, because obviously there are people. I mean, I'm going to bring Alex in on here because you were working as a cook while doing your films and stuff, and there's times where you can afford to work for free and times where you can't, presumably.
Exactly, yeah, it's like you say. I think at the start of your career, what you guys established, and it sounds like you've kind of validated this, people are looking for people who have that drive to create their own projects, people who are just passionate about film, people who can just have a chat about their favourite film or their favourite cinematographer. And, you know, I think my biggest piece of advice when applying for a job, get your driving licence as soon as possible. That's pretty important in the film world. And, yeah.
Okay. It's quite, because that's not something I'd necessarily think of if I was advising people to work in films, like get your driving. But
massively difficult.
Now you mention it, that seems kind of obvious, I guess.
Trying to get work for somebody who has to rely on public transport is a real challenge.
Yeah. So I'm going to sort of do a few.
Turn up on time. Sorry, that's one thing.
So I was going to talk about
half
that.
An hour before the time.
So there's some stuff here about. I was going to actually ask you and Siobhan about this stuff, about expectations and things, about what students or young people need to understand about deadlines and teams and meeting client expectations and things like that.
I think it's daunting. You know, I remember when you kind of leave college, you work really hard to get a job, and then you get the job and you're walking into this building that, you know, is maybe a BBC or a big broadcaster, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's daunting and there's a lot to take in. My experience, from my experience, and also what I'd recommend is go for it, be excited, be enthusiastic, ask questions. If after a couple of weeks you think, oh, I don't have much to do, go to your line manager and say, hey, just checking in, I've got a bit of extra time here, you know, is there anything else I can be doing? Be keen, be eager, mix with lots of people, make the best cup of tea ever. Remember who takes 2 sugars and all of that. Even if you're in at a researcher level or whatever, being keen, being eager gets you remembered in a very favourable way. And you do get the opportunities, as you say, actually we're doing this shoot over the weekend, it's a little passion project, you want to get involved, you get those opportunities. So that for me, it's, you know, and you've worked so hard to get your qualifications, but in a way, the hard work begins because it's about you now. It's not the college supporting you and being there with tutors. It's you on your own. But if you love it and you've got a real passion for it, that comes out. And just keep talking to people. Be confident. And that's hard. You know, you're in a new office. But just try to get to know people and be confident, because most of us in telly, we love talking about ourselves, you know? So somebody comes up and says, well, how did you get in? Oh, let me tell you. And then I think, oh, you're great.
An hour later.
Sorry. But it's just tapping into every contact. It's networking. Every job you have whenever you move on, you've still got a network of contacts there that you should keep in touch with. And it's easier with social media now, but it's a great industry. It is a privilege to work in what I do, and I don't take that for granted. You have a very powerful voice when you say something on the telly and it's gone out there. You know, it is a privilege. But it's a passion as well, and I love it, and I see so many great people coming up the ranks who are equally, if not more so, passionate. And I just wish there were, you know, enough opportunities for everyone to have their voice heard, really.
Alex, I'm going to come to you again. So you've been through, you went through our course a couple of years ago, and you aware of students and what student life is like and things like that. What do you think maybe we or students should take more seriously when doing the course?
I was just looking around at all the kit they have here, which is serious stuff. So I think one thing would be take advantage of all the equipment here, because they will let you, within reason, go out and film. So don't be afraid to just use them, definitely. And then secondly, or more importantly actually, is probably the people you're with. They could be people that you're working with in 30 years' time. For example, the independent film I made, that would have been impossible without people I met at this college and then at Pinewood, because I had friends who went to uni, and then we could say, okay, we can rent out your really nice camera for free, and people will collaborate with you and help you out for free and make a film with you because they're passionate about it. And I think, you know, it's everyone has this mindset of, okay, well, I'm going to make it, but I think it's nice if we can all rise together and help each other up and work together instead of trying to just go off on your own. So, you know, take advantage of the kit and make good connections, because you never know what you could be the next big thing. Okay.
I am going to, we're coming, I think, to the end of the session. I think I'm right. Yeah, edit. Fix it in the edit. Yeah, I think so. We're due to finish this one about 11, I think. So I think we're pretty much there. So I want to finish this with a kind of direct question for which will be relevant to students. So I'm going to go around and ask three of you, but I'm going to go one thing. What is one thing from your perspective that students need to know about the creative industries? Just one thing.
I would say it's about being prepared for that transition from a nice fun thing into doing that fun thing for the job. And that really touches on what Siobhan was saying there about, it's about remaining passionate about it. And it is about seeing that your very first steps into it may not be the dream job you want, but always have that dream of where you want to end up. But realise that along the way, it may not always be easy, but it is the collaborations you make, it is I hate the word networking, but it is so vital these days. It is the people you talk to that will help you get on to that next step to eventually get into that role that you've always wanted.
Okay. And as Alex said, you can kind of start that networking here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Siobhan, again, I'm going to ask you just one thing.
I think don't give up. If you love what you're learning at college and you really want to make a go of it, don't let anyone stop you. You know, really believe in yourself. You know, whatever we're doing, whether it's films, equipment, digital, it's a team. We need lots and lots of people. So you just need to go out and find your team that will, you know, give you the opportunity to be creative. So don't give up. You may send off 10 applications a day and you may hear nothing, you may get the odd no, whatever. Do not give up. Keep going. Contact those people you met years ago, because one of them will come good. And then you all of a sudden are on the move and you're getting that break, that opportunity. And usually that job will lead to another job and another one with contacts. And, you know, you maybe don't know exactly what you want to do when you're 19, 20, but by the time you've worked for 4 or 5 years, you know it's cinematography, or you know it's script writing or producing, reporting, whatever.
Okay. Alex, I'm going to come to you on this one. From your perspective, what is the one thing that our prospective students should know?
I think, like you were just saying, give everything a go. I think only by doing something, you know, this is what I'm passionate about. And then secondly, I think just refine your taste and find out what you like. watch films, and the bigger like literacy of film that you build, the further you'll go, and the more you'll be able to connect with people in the industry, especially people who are higher up and have watched way more films than you.
Yeah. Watch a lot of films.
Yeah, do your research.
Yeah.
Go back to the role that you're talking about.
Well, I mean, if you're a filmmaker, you should like film, right? I think it's kind of like it shouldn't be that onerous to do it. So I'm going to do a final question. I guess this is really for the audience in 2 years' time, because the question I've got is, what is one thing they should do? Obviously, the thing they should do next is sign up for our lovely courses at our lovely college. But after they've done that, what is the thing that they should do?
Just become a sponge and absorb absolutely everything you can from. If you do sign up, if it's about absorbing from the tutors, it's about taking every opportunity that they give you. I remember donkeys when I was here a millennia ago. We were doing theatre studies in a room very similar to this, but through the connections, somebody from the National Film School reached out and said, "Hey, can we have some students to act some scenes out while we're training some Steadicam operators?" And that was great in itself because such a nerd, and you get to play with Steadicams and things like that. But the people we were talking to there was a cameraman who was for live events. He would be on the back of the bike filming cyclists or runners and stuff like that. So he was learning there. But the guy doing the instructing was John. God, his surname's just left me now. But he was in Full Metal Jacket, which is a wonderful film from many, many years ago. But the actual Steadicam arms we were using were the very arms that were in the Aliens films for the machine guns, if there are any Aliens fans around. But so just on that one day, it was the day we weren't at college. Probably shouldn't say that, but it was the day we weren't at college. But they fed us, watered us, let us play with some cameras, let us chat to people. And from that, we made some really useful connections. So, yeah, if you get any of those opportunities, do take them.
Siobhan?
Totally agree with that. Plus, excuse me, obviously study hard, work hard, tap into every contact you can make, but try and do other passion projects on the side. So when you graduate in 2 years and you're maybe one of 30 graduates, you've not only got your qualification, you've also done this magazine, you've done this for the community, social media, whatever, you've done this. You've got all these other things to show off so that if you're all going for the same job, your CV might get a little higher up in the pecking order.
Because it's those little extra things. There'll be a lot of people who've done the course, and there might even be quite a few people who've got distinctions because Nick and Nicola are actually quite good. They're quite good at their jobs. But kind of the thing that will give you the edge is those little extra things on top that you've done sometimes. Alex, again, from your point of view, what should they do next?
Just don't be afraid to go out and fail and make loads of mistakes. You're not going to make Lawrence of Arabia on your first film. I look back on my films in the first year especially, I'm like, ooh, that's rough. But I had an idea, and you just don't be afraid. It's a long process, and you're just refining your own knowledge. So just go out there. Don't be disheartened if your first film comes out a bit naff, because you even have filmmakers like Spielberg who probably look at The Crystal Skull and go, oh, that wasn't very good. But you just have to keep going.
He wasn't. He wouldn't be wrong though.
So make mistakes.
We've officially come to the end, but keep rolling for a little bit because I am going to ask to see just if we have any questions from the floor.